Am I the a-hole if I, 29-year-old female, tell my husband, 31-year-old male, that I am not willing to spend $10,000 on a down payment for a new truck because driving my car makes him feel less of a man? Edit to clarify the title. We are looking at used trucks. I mentioned new because the truck would be new to us. This does not change the main point of the post much, but I wanted to be accurate. Backstory. My husband and I got married last July, but we have been together for a total of 7.5 years. We have always kept our finances separate, but I have been wanting to merge accounts for a while to remove that feeling of his and my money and approach our finances as a team rather than two individuals. If it matters, he makes about $15,000.20,000 more a year than I do, but I have the most money in my savings account. Long story short, his car has a lot of problems, and he has been wanting a truck for a while. Logically, we really do need a truck to allow us to do more home renovations and be less reliant on family, but I am not sure now is the right time. I have asked him if we can set a goal to purchase a truck this summer, so we can focus on saving up for a good down payment to lower our monthly payments and remain secure with a nest egg in our bank account. I currently have $13,000 in my account, which includes both my savings and my checking account. He typically has anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 in his account. While I have kept my spending more frugal, he has, to be fair, spent more money on our home and daily needs as I work remotely, whereas he works in person, so it is easier for him to grab last-minute items throughout the week. I want to make sure I am not making him look like he is being selfish. That is not the case, but I do think he is being immature. He asked me if we could go look at a $39,000 truck this weekend and asked me to put $10,000 down. Now, do not get me wrong, I am not hoarding my money from him, but I grew up homeless and without basic needs, and I do not ever want to put myself in a position where I am struggling again. We are 100% not poor, but I would feel very insecure dropping my account down by that much when I have been saving this money for years. To add to the conflict, when I remind him that we do not need the truck this minute and that we can use my car until, say, August or September, he says driving my car makes him feel like he is not a man. I tried to tell him that there is nothing manlier than a man who puts his family's financial interests before his wants, but he just clams up. He essentially told me that I obviously do not think of my bank account as ours, and that what I say is apparently the final say. I have tried to have a mature conversation to weigh the pros and cons, but he is legitimately pouting. I am talking no eye contact, monosyllabic responses, and not engaging in the discussion. I do not want to make him feel like his wants are not valid, but how do I get him to see from my perspective? Or, if necessary, how do I see from his when he will not give me anything more than it's the only truck that meets our requirements within 500 square miles? You have more money than I do, and your car is a lady's car. TLDR. My husband wants me to drop my bank account down to $3,000 so he can have a manly vehicle. Editing to address some questions, feedback, and overall absurdity, asterisk. I am sure most of you out there understand that there is only so much context or nuance that can be included within a singular Reddit thread. With that in mind, let's try not to judge my husband too harshly. First things first, I want to address the elephant in the room, which might disappoint some of you. I drive a black 2018 Nissan Sentra, and we call her Bernice. Excellent gas mileage, comfortable, spacious enough for a starter family, and still shiny, too. He has no problem whatsoever with the way he is perceived driving the car. It is the fact that it has no torque to it. His current car is a 2016 Subaru WRX, and he has spent the last 8+ years driving it. I cannot lie. I also really enjoy the turbo and the handling, so I understand the disappointment of going from that to Bernice. She is a true point A to point B vehicle, no bells or whistles, and always loses in a race. So while I still do not think this is a good enough reason to jump the gun on this truck, it is really not about being in a truck. Piggybacking off of this, I quoted him verbatim on the title. He truly said, "Driving your car makes me feel less of a man," but it is not any deeper than the fact that my car is slow, and it was a bad choice of words on his part. But to play the devil's advocate, I do call my car a she and named her Bernice, so I guess I started the whole gender assignment debacle. He is not a misogynist, and while he was not choosing his words correctly, I do not think his feelings are invalid to an extent. He was in motocross throughout middle and high school, and as soon as he had enough money, he bought a sports bike. Add in that he is used to a quick day-to-day vehicle, and I see why he might feel stifled by a boring car like mine. Is that a mature excuse? No, but it is not hard to understand his inner feelings on this. Next, I want to be fair to both myself and him on our spending, and why our bank accounts are where they are right now. He took out a loan for his motorcycle in 2016 for what I think was a $15,000 loan, and then took out another loan in 2017 to buy his car. I do not know the numbers exactly, but he put a reasonable down payment on the car and ended up with a $26,000 loan. Objectively, both were bad financial decisions, but he was barely 22 or 23, so I will give him some grace on that. He paid off his bike in 2023 and his car late last year. He sold his bike last summer as well. Now that I think about it, losing his bike and having his Subaru start dying might explain the urgency he's feeling. With both of those loans rolling over the last several years and taking on home ownership, he was not saving much. Because we were not engaged at the time of us buying the house, and I would not benefit from the equity put into the home, we decided I would furnish the house, pay an equal share towards home renovations, pay for the majority of groceries, cover electricity and internet, but he would cover the mortgage, heating, and taxes. It was a fair exchange as we did look into the numbers to make sure we were both putting in a fair share based on our individual income. Now, why, 8+ months without those big monthly payments and the extra money after selling his bike, is he still not saving enough? That is the big question. I took the advice many of you gave me and sat down with Excel after reading through some of your responses and began a budget for us. I am seeing areas I need to improve in, but we'll have to see what is going on with his numbers tomorrow. One more thing, though they were buried, some of you did suggest putting a decoration on the back end of Bernice. It was a valid suggestion, but she is secure in her identity. Spending nearly 50% of your combined dollars on a car is wild. I can understand matching him with no more than $4,000. In this economy, I would be buying the lowest cost, reliable transportation and keeping access to whatever cash I could. If the type of car he drives impacts his sense of manhood, I would want him to explore that a bit more. I find it alarming that he associates manhood with a truck. Am I the a-hole for getting upset with my mother when she asked when I would, finally, ask my daughter to leave? Hi, I am fairly new to using Reddit, but I have observed some subreddits before, including this one. Anyway, on to my problem. I, a 66-year-old female, am retired but kept very busy by caring for my mother, who is 85 years old, and my disabled husband, who is 64. My mother does not live with us. She lives in an assisted living facility where I visit her every few days to check up on her and see if she needs anything. During my latest visit, she brought up how I should finally ask my daughter, a 29-year-old female whom we will call C, to move out. Now for some context. Yes, my daughter does indeed still live with my husband and me, due to various factors including her rather fragile mental health. However, what my mother does not understand is that, despite us being parent and child, we are not living in a typical parent and child situation. We are more like roommates who just happen to also be family, because neither she nor my husband and I could afford places of our own in this economy. We are dependent on C, just as much as she is dependent on us. C holds down a full-time job, which does not pay great, but not terribly either. She pays her fair share in rent, utilities, and groceries, does her fair share of chores, and sometimes even takes over some of my chores when she feels that I need a break. I cook on weekdays when C has to work, but C has weekends off, so she takes over cooking duties then. She has a savings account for emergencies. She pays for the family Netflix account, and even spends some of the fun money she has left over every month, which is not much, on little treats for my husband and me, no matter how often I ask her not to spend what little money she has to enjoy life on us. So with all of that as background, My mother's comments made me pretty upset because C does so much to not be a burden to my husband and me, despite me telling her that I love her and could never see her as a burden. I also fear my mother may have planted that thought in her head when I was not around. Meanwhile, all my mother seems to do is demand, demand, demand. She has nurses at her disposal in that assisted living facility and people who do grocery runs for her. But she never uses these services and demands that I do everything for her instead. She demands all of my time, energy, and attention. I suspect she may want to push me to ask C to leave so she could move in with my husband and me and force me to be her full-time caretaker. I was already having a difficult day, so I just snapped and told her that C's living situation is none of her business. She started crying and asked why I would yell at her for just being concerned. So, Reddit, am I being unreasonable for snapping at my mother? Not the a-hole. A lot of people your mother's age have no idea how much the world truly has changed. My parents were very similar to what your mother is behaving like here. My mother has since passed away, and my dad has opened his eyes to many things. It happened when my adult child went to stay with him after a hospitalization. They got a lot of the, "When are you going to leave home?" questions, and they genuinely wanted to, so they asked my dad to help them navigate that. It was a dual benefit. It helped my dad have something to do and focus on getting out of bed, and it would help my child gain independence. So the job and housing hunt started. At first, he was shocked at how high starting wages were these days. But then, when trying to do the math for living expenses, he quickly realized those numbers are not enough. He used to complain about how the rising costs of things were going to make him outlive his pension. But then I reminded him that he makes more than many two-income households and no longer has a mortgage. If he is struggling, imagine everyone else's situation. It was largely eye-opening. He has since stopped asking when they are moving out and started ranting about how there is no way for young people to make it. In your case, your mom likely is not going to come to that conclusion. Moving forward, I would just tell her bluntly that your daughter's living situation is not a topic of discussion and move on. Or change the subject without responding. Your mom is old and in assisted living. You do not have much time left. It is up to you to decide how you want that time to be spent. That is what I told my mom. I said, "I love you, Mom, and I want the time we share together to be meaningful and loving. Can we please avoid topics we cannot discuss civilly? I am not changing my mind on this, and I appreciate the concern, but I have this handled."